Hello and welcome back. We are continuing with our Black Templar here. Last time we did our base coating. We did the shoulder pads, which I think was probably going to be the hardest part, just getting that nice white color built up. And it actually went pretty well. I'm pretty happy with the result. So now we do the kind of challenging part of not ruining it. We do want to do the kind of edge of the shoulder pads there, and hopefully we can do this very nice and easy. We're going to be jumping right in with our Abaddon Black, same as before. And after we do this, we're probably going to be doing a ton of base coating. Our black, pretty much everywhere, needs another layer. So we're going to do our best for that. And unfortunately, this brush is actually a little bit too worn out, possibly, for what I want to do here. I'll try it again here. Get our paint nice and thin. And there we go. Starting to look a little bit better. And if I could get a nice amount on our brush here, there we go. This is the tricky part. This is where we hold our breath and hope for the best. And instantly ruined it. That's fine. We can go back and fix it. And we will just very, very gently, as easily as we can, go along the edge of our shoulder pad. Problem is, this brush is a little bit frayed, and unfortunately that's kind of messing with our project here, but we will continue on like nothing happened. No big deal. We kind of know that we can get this white built back up again pretty easily. Just a little bit of grace here and Corax white. And wow, my hands are really shaky today. That's not great, but we'll persist. Nothing too crazy. And of course, as this all dries, we do want to kind of come back and do a second coat, because we've already kind of messed up, so we might as well continue on the path and just get it all done before we go back and try to fix things. Get a little bit more paint on our brush. I don't know why I'm so shaky. I haven't really been doing anything today that would warrant that. But that's the way it goes sometimes, I guess. That's why it helps to have this paint handle. It does keep things from shaking too much, but it doesn't get rid of it entirely. And we'll just come right back over, and you can see on that second pass things start looking much smoother, much cleaner, as we kind of thicken up that paint on a second layer a little bit there. And a big part of what I noticed we really need to work on is underneath these arms here, below the shoulder pads. I don't know what was with last time, whether it was just the brush I was using didn't really want to catch it or what, but it really missed just a ton of this paintwork underneath. So we do kind of want to clean that up a little bit, and the inside of the arms as well, kind of while we're here. Again, just a very nice thin layer, nothing too crazy. And then once we're finished with this, we'll go back over and we'll do the trim on the other shoulder pad. Also today, we won't do a ton of it, but I do want to try out a little bit of our highlights that I want to try. I do have some new paints, and I feel like the Fang is a good one for this. And either it's going to look great, or it's going to look terrible. I don't really think there's an in-between. It's kind of a weird color. It's like a bluish gray, and I'm hesitant to try it, but if it works, I feel like it's going to work spectacularly. So that's going to be something we're going to try out today. And I think this brush is just kind of past its useful point, which is kind of sad. I do have a backup one here. It's a little bit thicker. We'll see if I have another one. I've got a ton of brushes on my desk, thankfully. We'll try this one. It does have that little bit of a curve in it. We've used this one before for some edging. Not the right word I want to use, but unfortunately it's the best one I got. Just some casual edging. That's all we're doing today. Little 18 plus action, you know. I hate kind of the development of words in society. You'll have a word that means something totally normal, and then it gets picked up as like slang or whatever, and it just picks up a whole nother meaning, and you can never like use it properly again. Same thing with like Goonhammer, right? It's a pretty standard Warhammer website, and actually like they do a ton of different minis and stuff. It's all about painting basically. Great website. There's a lot of really great guides on there if you're a more like reading learner, I guess. They do walk you through like step by step a lot of how to paint a bunch of different chapters. And that's kind of where I get most of my paint schemes from, if I'm being honest. But they do have some like picture guides too. It's more of like a step by step, just without the video form, which I like. That's kind of my preferred style of learning. But the name itself, I can never just sit there and read without having a little like schoolgirl laugh. It didn't used to mean what it means now. Gooning used to be a totally normal word, and now it's just not. So it's the cards we are dealt, unfortunately. And now that we finished that my good lord, second shoulder pad, we are going to be doing a little bit more of this cleanup on all of these spots of black that we didn't properly get the first time around. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 little coats, nothing too crazy. I actually saw, I don't know whether it was like a magazine or something. It was on Reddit today, but it was like one of the official like how-to guides in a magazine, basically saying how to like paint ultramarines. And in it said that 3 coats was standard now, rather than like 2 thin coats, which has always been kind of the standard, which kind of struck me as weird a little bit. But it also didn't say to use primer. It said just to paint straight onto the model, which you technically can, but Lord, I think that's terrible advice. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Using primer makes your life much easier. Otherwise, your paint kind of likes to slip off your model while it's wet. In case you're wondering why you need to prime, that's pretty much it. I will say GW base paints are pretty decent at staying on your model even without primer. But something like Vallejo, at least in my personal experience, is kind of the opposite of that. It's very kind of viscous if you don't have primer holding it down. So that kind of saves you a little bit of that pain. Just for reference for you there. If you've been following along and you don't know why I prime things, that's why. And that's why you should. And we will continue along with our second coat here. It's going on very nicely. Thankfully, black is one of those colors that you can thin just a little bit more than others, just because it's naturally kind of very thick paint, and it still goes on really nicely. And the backpack especially was looking kind of spotty back here. I want to fix that up just a little bit. I've been checking out some of the Humble Bundle games. Again, not to name drop them as much as I do, but I just use Humble Bundle a lot. It's very nice. And they have like their Humble Choice thing. And I picked up, I think it's called like Lost Eidolon. It's a pretty fun little turn-based strategy kind of game. It's kind of like Three Houses, Fire Emblem, which was a fun little Switch game. I liked it a lot. You can tell it's very like heavily inspired by it, if not like a blatant ripoff in some aspects. But I gotta say, and I have the same problem with like a lot of animes that do English voiceovers. Man, they're really hard to listen to sometimes. Like it makes you cringe. And there's nothing wrong with like subtitles or dubbing over stuff, but man, 9 times out of 10, I just find it's better to go with the original, like Japanese voice acting, because every time they switch to English, it's just bad. uh, I don't know. My personal preference. Some people just hate listening to you know, not their native language, and I get that too. But Lord, I can't do it. I cannot do it. Anyway, as we continue on, we are nearly done with our second coat here. Again, I just want to touch up some of the spots we missed, and we will get back to fixing these shoulder pads. I think after that, there's still a lot we need to do, so I'm kind of taking it step by step here. This is probably going to be at least another video at minimum. But we will work on some of the other details, like the blade and the flamer. There's some extra colors that we kind of need to throw in with that, so we will get around to that very shortly. And then, of course, our edge highlighting, we'll be doing that as well. We'll at least be starting it. If it doesn't go well, then maybe we'll kind of change tactics a little bit there. But I at least want to get a feel for it and kind of see how it looks. So we will do that definitely in this video. But for now, while that's drying, we will switch back over to Gray Seer, and this is going to be to start the fix on our shoulder pads. If it was any other color, I'd go straight back into whatever the color is. Right now it's white, and building up from black to white is kind of a pain. So going with gray in the middle is kind of a good stopgap. It helps you get a little bit more of a smoother transition with using less layers. Because, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, if you ever try to paint white directly onto black, it just sucks. It doesn't look good. It takes tons of layers. And honestly, it's a headache just kind of best avoided, in my opinion. So there you go. That's kind of why we do it the way we do it. Or the way I do it, at least. You're free to paint however you want. But just trying to make things easier on you. That's all. I don't want to see you guys suffer, you know? So we want to do things the easiest way we possibly can. That way we both get enjoyment out of these videos, and you have fun painting your own guys. I also do want to say, I was going through my box of Warhammer, because I moved recently, if you don't keep up with my personal life, which I don't expect you to. But I had to box up all my Warhammer for like the second time in a year, which sucked. But I was unboxing a lot of it today, and I found he's primed and he has a base coat, and I just have not painted him. He's a Black Templar, like captain, I think. And I was a little upset because he would have been perfect for this video, because this guy doesn't have like Black Templar emblems or pauldrons or anything like that. So I was like, oh man, that would have been cool. And then I realized I already started this. And that was a little annoying, but we will paint him up at some point, I promise. It just might be for a hot minute. I do want to get to some other chapters and some other factions first, so we'll take our time with that. But with that being said, while this dries once again, we are going to move on to our highlighting layer. This is going to be the Fang, as I mentioned earlier. I do kind of like to show the paints off, as you know. And we are going to switch to our slightly smaller brush, if I have one. There we go. The paint cap there did not want to stay open for me. And yes, I do. I have a very, very thin brush here. It's a little bit kind of flayed at the end, as with most of my brushes, but it should do us just fine. And this is just going to be to kind of test out my theory of how good this will look. Maybe we'll get a little bit less paint on our brush here. And we'll start with the back here, just using the edge of our brush. It's going to be a little bit difficult with how shaky my hands are today. But we'll start out with just going along the kind of edge of our armor panels there, and painting on a nice kind of highlight on the edge. Do the same thing on the other side. I'm sure it's an awkward angle. You might not be able to see this too great, but we'll try our best. And then, I don't know if we'll be able to do this, just because I might shake too much, but kind of that middle layer as well. Just drag it across in a somewhat nice, even, straight line. Oh, I'm fumbling. My brush isn't working with me. There we are. Good enough. I tried my best. And we'll even do one kind of nice little pass over once more on that bottom. Just get a solid kind of thicker line. And once this is all dried up, we'll kind of take a look at it. We'll see how it looks. And if it looks terrible, we'll just go right back over it with more black. But I'm hoping that for a bit of highlight, this kind of looks pretty well. And honestly, it might be a little bit too light, but I think if we put some non-oil over it on the end of everything, I think it might actually look pretty good. So we'll roll with it. We will keep that. And we'll come back to it in just a few seconds here once we go over our shoulder pads with a second layer. This is going to be Corax White. If you watched the first video, you know this is kind of how we built it up the first time. And now that we're fixing our shoulder pads, we're doing the exact same thing again. Again, with our paint being nice and thick. Whoa, thin, sorry. My horrible misspeaking there should not dissuade you. Thin paints, always. Unless you're going for a specific style, in which case that can also work to your advantage to have it too thick. But in general, thin. Thin is your goal, it's what you want, so it makes people happy. It makes painting nice and easy. And that's just kind of the world we want to live in, where all of our paints are nice and thin. I've been playing a lot of Total War, Warhammer 3 again recently. I pick it up every few months and then I'll drop it again, which I do with a lot of games, but Warhammer 3 especially just keeps dragging me right back in. And I gotta say, that game kind of makes me sad for a really weird reason. I really like all of the units that you get to play as, and I think they all look great. I think the art team has done a lot of great work. Some of the gameplay mechanics are kind of iffy, and that's kind of always been the case with Total War, in my opinion. But something that makes me very sad is that a lot of the models you just aren't really a thing now, like in the current lineup, I guess is the right word. Like Vampire Counts, I know, are kind of getting a new line. Bretonians, I think, are getting an updated line, but right now they don't really have anything in Age of Sigmar. And of course, it's like two different timelines, and I know there's like the Old World, and I think Warcry is a whole different line, but in terms of like just a straight up one-to-one, I wish you could just get all of the units. I wish they made current models of them, and you know, I want full armies of all of them. I want to be able to play the same armies as I do in Warhammer 3 as I do on the tabletop. That would be sweet. But there's kind of a weird kind of displacement in the like timeline that the two are in. Like Age of Sigmar is a totally different timeline from, or time period, I guess, from Warhammer 3. I don't know. I don't know the fantasy lore too well, unfortunately. So I can't really say one way or another. And unfortunately, this has some like really weird like flakes in it, so I'm gonna try to get that off of there, keep it more smooth. I don't know what the deal with that is, unfortunately, but we'll try our best to kind of navigate around it. And as that dries up, we will just kind of continue on. This side has kind of the same problem. I don't know why there's little flakes in my white. It's very strange. Whatever. We'll kind of roll with it, I guess. And you know, worst case, I'll just scrape it off with like a hobby knife or something. But we do want to go back to our edge highlighting here while I'm still continuing on, and we have a few minutes left. And generally, this is kind of the lengthiest of the processes that you're going to do. This is, of course, going to take us to more like a parade-ready sort of stance. But we just want to kind of continue on with all of the raised edges that we are able to see. And you want to be a little bit careful. You can kind of overdo it. I know some people do edge highlights on literally every edge, but I think it's a little overkill. I kind of don't like that. So I would kind of steer away from doing it. I think just all of the really pronounced edges is kind of a good way to go. Obviously, like the end of each armor piece. Sometimes you can do like the middle of the armor, like these knee pads here. I see people do like the whole knee pad, like the entire circle underneath and everything. It's a little much. I think it kind of takes away from the rest of your model if you do that. But maybe that's just me being jealous because I don't have the skill to neatly do the entire thing. But that's just me. And we will continue on. We'll go for a few more minutes here. I like to keep things at kind of 20-ish minutes, but sometimes I like to go over a little bit just when I'm having fun. And this edge highlight so far has been a pretty good time, so I'm gonna keep with it. And I kind of want to do the back of the leg here, just above. And we'll continue it around. It is kind of a weird edge here, so it might get a little bit messy, and yes it is. But I'll kind of work on it, and my lighting isn't really helping, unfortunately, so it might take a lot of work. But we also want to do the edge of these shoulder pads. And oh, my brush is kind of flaking out on me there. But as I take a look here, it's a lengthy process. I might do a lot of it off camera, I might not. It just kind of depends on how I'm feeling. I kind of like to keep everything in, just so you guys kind of see, every step I'm doing. But for the sake of time, this could take quite a while. So we'll kind of, maybe I'll kind of meet in the middle, and we will do the best with what we got. Another trick to this, I kind of mention it every time I do this, but just use the edge of your brush. Hence why I call it edging, as much as I dislike the name. But it does kind of help you keep that kind of neatness as you go along, and especially as we get into some weird angles here. And there we are. Let's continue along, getting as well as you can. We did get a little bit on that arm, but that's fine because we're going to go back over it anyway. It needs another base coat of black. And maybe we can do like the, maybe, if I still had more paint on our brush. You know what, we'll do that base coat now, and then we'll end it. Just so we kind of leave on a proper, good looking note here before we ruin the rest of our model with this edging. Give our black a nice shake, make sure it's still kind of nicely separated, or mixed rather. You don't want the pigments separating is what I meant. And just with a very nicely thinned amount of black, we'll go right back over that arm and kind of avoid the gun there if we can. This actually might be a little bit too watery, but that's fine. And we'll do the underside. Nice thing about black is that even when it is watery like this, it still kind of layers nicely, just because it's such a kind of dark and very kind of overwhelming pigment, I guess. And we will do just a little bit more touch-ups everywhere else. But with us coming to an end here, I do want to shout out, I have a Patreon. Link is in the description. If you enjoy these videos and you want to see more, that is pretty much the easiest way to guarantee you'll get more. It generally just helps me kind of buy more models and more paints and a whole lot. So I'd appreciate if you check that out. Otherwise, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all of the good stuff. It all helps me out in various different ways. And especially commenting. I really like to get your guys' feedback. Let me know if you want to see anything in specific. If you want me to explain something, anything. Just general questions, comments, concerns, whatever. I'm open to all of it. Other than that, though, I thank you guys very much for watching. We'll continue this next time, and hopefully you join me then.